Despite the indictment of 2 adult individuals who committed an act of domestic terrorism during the Michael Knowles versus Brad Polumbo transgenderism debate on the University of Pittsburgh's campus a little bit earlier this year, the University of Pittsburgh has remained silent. Complete and utter radio static silence. And it's making a lot of people mad. Journalist Logan Dubill, who writes a lot for campus-based watchdog groups, has actually mentioned this fact that the university, despite this indictment being unsealed and being known for, as of the posting of this video, well over a week, the university has absolutely said nothing in response. Now, you guys just saw a video of Michael Knowles being burned in effigy at the University of Pittsburgh ahead of a debate he was doing with Brad Polumbo on the proposition, should transgenderism be regulated by law, by the government, which made a lot of people angry, which caused the entire campus of the University of Pittsburgh to be just shrouded in chaos and the aggravations of protesters. And after this event, actually, there was a list of demands sent out by trans activists, which actually, according to the list, demanded several things. It demanded that there would be mandatory gender classes. It demanded several things which fit into this worldview that is so prevalent on college campuses, which completely and utterly avoids and eschews free and open debate. But this didn't just happen in a vacuum. The University of Pittsburgh in particular has actually been rather antagonistic towards free thought, and particularly if that free thought is used to express conservatism, they've been especially antagonistic against you. For example, the University of Pittsburgh student government, when 3 conservative speakers were announced, Cabot, Phillips, Riley Gaines, and Michael Knowles, the student government unequivocally came out and condemned those speakers and condemned the groups hosting them as being hateful. Instead, they said this exactly. They said, in light of events planned over the next month, the student government board stands in solidarity with our LGBTQIA+ community. While we recognize the importance of discussion and sharing complex perspectives and appreciate dialogue that is engaged in good faith, we are concerned that the upcoming events on campus are being planned to promote exclusion and also promote hate. And according to this campus reform article, the student government has not given certain funds to conservative groups like TPUSA that operate on the campus, and their speculation as to why, to me, it's actually quite evident and quite clear. My friends, what's happening here didn't come out of nowhere, as I mentioned. When you have a student body that is enshrouded and consumed by these ideas, which do not promote free and open debate, you will get censorious consequences. And when it comes from the top down, it's even worse. In fact, the provost of the University of Pittsburgh herself condemned the speakers that came as being hateful and being divisive and being exclusionary as well. So it's not just the student government that is ran by radical left-wing students. It's also people in the administration that hold similar beliefs and create the same kind of culture, which we see leads to protest, leads to acts of domestic terrorism, leads to, in the case of Riley Gaines, when she came to the University of Pittsburgh, streets being completely and utterly shut down. Liberation now! Because apparently a woman that says that women's sports should be preserved against biological men that wish to compete in them is hateful. This does not come out of nowhere. It's created by a culture that is then preceded by bad ideas. But this is not just about the University of Pittsburgh, my friends. This is actually an example of what is happening to universities in general in the United States of America. When it becomes acceptable for the university staff, for several students, for the official accounts of the university to condemn 3 peaceful, conservative, mainstream conservative figures, and then in the same breath, a week after an indictment, which talks about 2 people who came to the campus, threw fireworks and smoke bombs, tried to blow people up, allows that not to have any response to it at all, that is a symptom of a cultural illness. And I'll give the chancellor of the University of Pittsburgh some credit. He did come out after the raucous events that surrounded the Michael Knowles event. He came out and said, well, free speech is not about throwing bombs at people or whatever. He came out and condemned it softly. But he has not been quick to condemn and has almost exclusively ignored this recent indictment that has been held down that I mentioned. But again, universities in general have become compromised by this ideological poison. Think about it. Universities are supposed to cultivate virtue and enlightenment in man. Why do you go to a university? You go to a university to learn things that presumably you A, didn't have a good knowledge of before, or B, want to refine your knowledge of that you may have an interest of, but you want to refine your knowledge with the assistance of people who have experience in those fields. Now, remember one thing before I continue. Ideas precede accomplishment. Ideas precede action. No action undertaken by a human being is undertaken without first referencing some idea, even if that reference to that idea is implicit. The hand gestures I'm using in this video, for those of you who are watching me on your screen, are undertaken with an idea of how to persuade and how to keep people engaged. The tonality of my voice, the way I'm speaking, the words I'm using are all crafted and transmitted in reference to an idea. Similarly, the culture we see in campuses like the University of Pittsburgh and around the country are transmitted and forwarded on the basis of an idea. And that idea is simple. That idea says that it is okay to have values that you affirm but do not examine. Because examining those values, given their super personal and subjective nature, could actually lead to danger and erasure of some people. It's okay to believe in equity, for example, without actually investigating what it means to be equitable. And the moment you question what the idea of equity means is the moment you become hateful, the moment you become a bigot. This is why a professor was recently just fired for saying that sex is established by chromosomal reality as opposed to subjective preference. If you are a male or if you're a woman, this professor argued, that is determined by sex. He was fired for that. Because once again, these values, these ideas that govern these institutions are not examined. They are affirmed. There is this sort of servility of the mind, this slavishness, which permeates institutions that are meant to prevent such behavior in the first place, that are meant to prevent being servile and slavish to ideas. If you look at historically the universities of the West, they have been incubators of creation, incubators of accomplishment, incubators of debates that shifted the form of society or refined the form of society. If you even go back to the 60s, the universities were the centers of activism back then against some of the sort of mainstream norms of the day, like, for example, being a war hawk supporting the Vietnam War. It started in the universities that resisted against that, and so on and so forth. And of course, not everything was good that happened in the 60s, but what I'm saying is, any major movement that challenges the direction of a society or asks people in a society to critically self-reflect typically emerges from the universities. Universities are the upstream source of so much dialogue and analysis, so much reflection, which any society needs to survive. But what has happened is these sources have become polluted. The headwaters of knowledge have become polluted, and political actors have overtaken these areas, overtaken these institutions, and then converted them into mouthpieces for their own agenda. And the culture of conformity is so thick in the atmosphere that no one wants to speak up, or when they do speak up, it's in favor of the unexamined idea. As Socrates said, the unexamined life is no life at all. When it becomes acceptable, once again, not to respond to two adults who came to do harm to your students, but it's acceptable to immediately trash and attack peaceful speakers who are mainstream conservatives who simply have unorthodox positions on issues, that's when you know that cultural poison has taken root. That's when you know the universities have become compromised. And that's when you know the former centers of enlightenment have become instead factories of indoctrination. Now, many of you may say, Christian, this is so obvious to me. Why are you saying this? I'm saying this because all of us need to take a microscope and look at the ground, look at the contents of what we're seeing. Because just like the universities rely on their students not to examine some of the critical tenets of the philosophies that dominate the halls of education today, sometimes people in power rely on you not to examine the ways in which you think and you live in your life. They want you to look outward, look at the world, look at what's going on in society, look at what is what is popular, as opposed to what is correct, as opposed to what is morally righteous. But a great man and a great mind, forget a great man, a great mind is distinguished by the courage and conviction to look at what's popular and ask the question, is this what's good? To distinguish between what is a subject of mass approval and what is the subject of the good, the universal. But that habit has been extinguished and attacked in our modern society because that does not benefit the status quo. Do you guys see what I'm saying here? Do you guys see what I'm saying here? It would have been unthinkable, not too long ago, for a university to remain quiet about such a huge dereliction of trust, a huge danger to their students. But it has become fashionable because the principle of conviction is not being encouraged when it does not forward the right, air quotes, ideas. That is truly what's going on here. Courage and conviction towards ideas that may not even be popular but are necessary is the mark of a great mind. My friends, when I come on this channel and talk to you about these issues, my primary ambition is not to make you be dazzled and robbed of what you're hearing. My primary ambition is to inform you about what's going on, A, and then B, give you a fresh way of looking at it. Because what is happening in America, what is happening in the West, with the dulling of convictions, with the acceptance of ideologies that seek to transform the nature of reality into something that it's not, with the lack of philosophy and the rampant anti-intellectualism. Anna Cavarro just said that she barks like a dog at DeSantis reporters and says that we say gay here in Florida. So she basically allows a lie to inform our political convictions. That's the era we are in, people. That's what we're in. My job is to give you the bulwark to beat back against such irrationality. And it used to be the university's job, but it's not anymore. It's not. The question that we all have to ask ourselves is very simple as I close. What do we want American society to look like in the next 10, 20 years? What do we want our universities to look like? What do we want our culture to look like? I'll give you two hypothetical paths. There are more, but I'll give you two. Do you want your universities to continue to become dens of indoctrination in which conviction is discouraged and slavishness to the unexamined norm is encouraged? Or do you want universities to become what they once were, centers of educating and refining men? Of those two options, what do you choose? Of those two options, what sounds most preferable? To most people, it's very obvious what sounds most preferable. But to a lot of people, they may not even understand the significance of what's going on. But this case here at University of Pittsburgh demonstrates that this top-down, cultural engineering of the university environment by the student government, by the administration, and the refusal of the chancellor to be courageous in the face of this nonsense, it just demonstrates how far the state of American higher education has fallen. And it's so unfortunate. And so if you guys want to learn more, I encourage you to go look at Logan Dubill's Twitter. His information will be in the description down below. He has a lot of footage. I've played a lot of his footage during this video. And he really has his thumbs on the pulse of what's going on at University of Pittsburgh and such colleges that are near that area. And I would encourage you, as a matter of practicality, to also have your thumb on the pulse of what's going on in your local educational environment to the best of your ability. Because the more of us that are out there reporting this stuff and exposing this stuff will then feed the public corrective, the corrective which allowed America to be birthed in the first place, and the corrective which keeps social institutions accountable. The problem in America right now is that there is no public corrective. The public corrective has been hijacked and engineered by political interests to either not focus on what's important or to focus on the wrong target that they believe is important, when in all reality it's only of marginal importance. And no free society can exist and persist without the public being willing to discourage things in their private capacity and act against them in a peaceful and voluntary way. When apathy sets in, civilization collapses. And this experiment we've been working on for the past 270 years no longer persists. So, University of Pittsburgh, where are you? Where's the courage? Where's the conviction? Where's the dedication? Where is the willingness to condemn what is evil, regardless of how it may look like? Where is the care for your students? I'm seeing none of it. Hopefully, as time persists, that will change, and what I'm saying right now will no longer be true. But for long as it is, let it be a metaphor for the current state of America's horrible educational environment and the ideas they have become poisoned by. My friends, like this video, comment on this video, share this video. Donate to me if you want me to keep making videos. Donate to me, please. ChristianWatson.locals.com or Patreon or all that stuff will be in the comment section down below. Share this video. I love you guys so much, and please, forever and eternally, stay pensive. Bye, all.